reel me in if I get too.
Have you been looking for a podcast to help you transform your physical and mental? One that'll shoot you straight between the eyes with truth and no BS, helping you have the right mindset to accomplish things, the iron will and fortitude to follow through with what you say you're going to do. No excuses. Mark owns martial arts schools, and after 30 years, he has some real insight for real talk, real life, real conversations, motivational, fitness, self-defense, weight loss, live from the Great 1-8. This is Real Talk with Mark Cox.
Oh, we're live now. Sorry about cutting you off there a second ago, Coach. We hit live and then it cut us off while we were talking. I apologize. Good morning, good afternoon to the East Coast. Good morning here on the West Coast. West Coast out here is in California right now is underwater. I was hoping that I didn't have to call you and say, hey, we have to reschedule, because last night it was dropping 1.5 inches by an hour in California, which is super unusual. And, you know, people in California, when the rain starts hitting like that, they don't know what to do. They can't drive right and can't see, and accidents everywhere and flooded streets. So it was kind of a mess last night, but we made it. We're on the other side of it a little bit. We're going to have some more rain today, but we got internet good, and we have this next hour, we should have light showers. So we're going to be good to go. So listen, everybody's listening. This is Mark. If you haven't been Mark Cox, if you haven't been listening to my show before, it's Beyond the Mat. You know, I have entrepreneurs, authors, martial artists, just all around good people always on my show. So it's great, man. This is a good friend of mine. This is Coach Marvin King. We got to meet as we were going through being an author together and releasing books and getting on stage a little bit together. So I've had the pleasure of sitting late night talking with you and Jose one night. We were up late for, I don't know, up to 3 o'clock in the morning one night, just getting to know each other. So it's been a friendship formed online, and then we got to meet in person, and we've kept in contact ever since. And this is the second time you've been on the show. First time we talked about your first book, and today we're going to get to dabble into what you're doing a little bit. And we're going to talk about working out a little bit, something that you do well. So with no further ado, Coach, why don't you go ahead and give everybody your pedigree, and we'll get started.
Hey, okay, Mark. Yeah, Coach Marvin King. Martial artist, as you said, Mark. Mark and I have known each other for a couple of years now. But black belt, master in martial arts. I'm a wellness coach. And we're going to get into a little bit what that really means. It's very confusing between wellness and fitness. I've also done lots of training. And I've found out that my previous background in project management really helps with organizing lifestyle and the 10 elements of wellness, which we're going to be talking about a little bit of that tonight, hopefully. And basically 50 years into the martial arts. And through that period of time, wellness and the ability to train the body has become very interesting and part of what I like to do with the training of the martial arts. And the wellness and health of the body became critical. So that's what we do. We run the business. I'm the owner of the Bowie Kettlebell Health and Wellness business in Bowie, Maryland. The business has been around since 2014. And we have clients ranging from, we like really with many types of clients ranging from 20 to 60 to 70 years old, all benefiting from the program that we teach. We run an online program and we run an in-person program. So we try to get in touch with as many people as possible. The online program has been very popular since COVID popped up, and it's been still running strong. And I'm also a martial arts Hall of Famer in 4 different international organizations. I've been elected by my peers because of the background in martial arts. So I write articles as well for Argentina magazine, which is an international magazine, one of the Hall of Fame members that I work with. And I'm also a published author. Mark mentioned I have the one book I launched 2 years ago, The Art of Being Well, which basically defines the program that I teach and some of the things we're going to delve in here today. And I'm into the second co-author of with Elite Publications. The book is to be released soon, so we're not going to really push the information out there. You can't buy it until maybe beginning of March. But that's Elite Martial Arts of America. So I'm a co-author in that book as well. And it's just a lot of fun being passing the information out. And I look forward to doing some more.
Yeah, it's good. It's good, Coach. I've got to experience watching him do some stuff on stage. It's been fun. He does hit on something that I believe is not really spoke about well in martial arts, which is the wellness side of it. So let's hit on what you said here. The wellness. There's a difference between wellness and fitness. And now I'm not sure, Coach. How old are you now, Coach?
I am 60. I'll be 64 in March. I'm 63.
Okay,
good old 63-year-old number.
Yeah. Okay. So we've chewed the same dirt. So I'll be 63 next month, right? And I think we stand the test of time pretty well. I've seen other 63-year-olds that can barely walk around the block. So, fitness has been part of, working out's been part of what I do forever. So I want to talk about what's the difference here about wellness and fitness. Why don't you give me your explanation, and I got some questions for you as we move forward on that.
Okay. This is it's confusing to a lot of people, fitness and wellness. They use the word interchangeably, and they're really different. Fitness is pretty much, and I wrote about this, and I'm going to read it briefly because I put it together, a simple paragraph. Fitness is a condition of being physically fit. Okay, physically fit, healthy as a goal. You set a goal to be fit. The body's in shape, and for a sport or an activity, but it's only one of the 10 elements of wellness. Fitness is okay. That's just being fit. You can athletes are fit for a period of a sport career, or you maintain a level of fitness for whatever you're trying to achieve. Martial artists are fit forever for a long time, but wellness is usually considered. One more thing about fitness is something that you set up as a New Year's resolution. I'm going to get fit for 2024. It's a goal set to go to the gym and get fit. But wellness is the longevity of fitness. Okay, you think of being well, people think of that as not being sick or preventing sickness. Okay, and they kind of separate the two, but they should be combined. Wellness is the maintenance of fitness over a lifetime, because all the life situations that occur causes the fitness to come in and out of your life. Like you're different fit at 20 than you are at 50. Okay, so how do you train to accept the level that you are, or your physicalities at a different age or period in your life? So being able to adjust a fitness plan for a long time is called a wellness plan.
So I was talking to you about this before. When I was young, when I was a young man, I did a lot of powerlifting, right? So I played football. I did all that stuff. You know how it was in the gym, right? It was just pushing old weights, getting on the squat machine, and pushing as much as you can. I was probably squatting 620 as a young man, benching 455, deadlifting, I don't know, in 550. So I don't know, stupid numbers, right? And I just liked it. I really wasn't, you kind of looked at your diet, but you didn't, because it wasn't really bodybuilding. It was powerlifting. So it was just lifting heavy stuff and kind of getting off on the fact of being strong. Then I started martial arts, and I realized now I'm strong in martial arts for sure, but I didn't have functional fitness. It wasn't something, and when I was in school, or we were in school, functional fitness, I don't know where it went away, because functional fitness was pretty prevalent. It looked like to me that was kind of what they did in the 50s, monkey bars and pull-ups and all that kind of stuff that you did. And then, the weight rooms came around for football players and stuff, and it just kind of went a different direction. So instead of functional fitness, you had strength training. And then for a martial artist, especially, sometimes, being big and bulky isn't the best. It's a little bit harder to move. You get tired more. Your muscles have a lot of blood that has to come to them. And so nobody really teaches you how to breathe. I've been in martial arts for a long time. You come from a kung fu background, so their wellness is kind of built into their martial arts. Not all martial arts are that way. Not all martial arts have a wellness component to them. But kung fu, for some reason, does, right? Breathing properly, all the kind of stuff that does it. So in my 60s now, this was, I don't know if you know this, but I got pancreatitis about 6-7 months ago. And that was super eye-opening. I was in the hospital for 3 days, man. And I was not happy about it at all because I don't drink any alcohol, right? I don't drink. And I'm like, okay, why did I get this? And I don't know if it was because I was in ketosis for so long and the pancreas, I asked these questions. They couldn't have answers for me. How they were going to feed me in the hospital, coach, was they gave me Ensure. They said, drink this. There's 35 grams of sugar in an 8-ounce cup. That's 9 tablespoons of sugar in a 6-ounce cup. I'm like, this is not going to make me well. And so I'm not having this. And so I had to take my own responsibility in my health and start asking some questions. After that, I gave up some dairy. I saw another huge weight loss after I did that. So I didn't want this flare up again of this pancreatitis. So when you talk about wellness, where I'm at right now is trying to understand how to breathe, how to get oxygen inside you on a regular basis in the morning, having a morning routine of it. So why don't you give me a little bit of a morning routine, or is breathing part of what you do? Well, I know it's part of what you do because I just saw you wheeling a staff around the other day and breathing after every strike also. Well, let's talk about that type of thing. What's one thing or two things that somebody, when they get up in the morning, can do to start a day to get a lot of oxygen inside of us? Let's talk about that part.
Excellent. I'm starting the new program I'm launching is the new wellness program I'm launching is a morning routine. So it's perfect with what you're just describing. I've had a morning routine. I recognize the morning routine being critical. So I've been doing a morning routine pretty much every day since the 90s. Okay. And I found out through a simple pattern of movement and breathing, you can maintain a certain level of fitness. Because you want to get in tune with your body. You have to connect the mental with the muscle. And if you can learn how to breathe from the abdominals, which is the basic way of breathing, take the breath in through the nose and concentrate and let the belly balloon out and take the breath as deep as possible. If you can get a couple breaths, 10 of those in the daytime, in the morning, as your feet hit the floor, you've already set a good pattern for yourself in the day. Because you're setting up your nervous system to be responsive to a good form of breathing for the beginning of the day. And that's how you set the pattern. There's some movement patterns you can do as far as some finger flexibility, arm flexibility, leg and neck, and basic torso flexibility, or movement patterns where you set the body's motion or the nervous system to respond. So the whole idea is to establish a connection between the mind, body, and breath. And once you understand that connection, you can do pretty good during the course of a day. And it's not a lot, okay? I find that some of the clients I work with have a difficulty understanding this breathing component. The most people in the Western society are chest breathers, which means you breathe mostly from your chest, which is a short cycle of breathing. You cut yourself in half. And martial artists who have trained and not learned how to train in the abdominals, they lose a lot of power by just breathing from the chest. But if your body's not used to it, you don't realize how much power that is. I've seen professional athletes on the basketball floor who are breathing incorrectly because you can see the pattern. Once you understand, you can see athletes who are breathing different ways. And I see when they correct the pattern, I'm not going to mention names, but some basketball players, high level, were chest breathers. But as soon as they were able to make the connection to the abdominals, their free throw percentage goes up. Their basketball play gets better, okay, because you get more in tune with your body. So that is a simple way to concentrate the breathing, how to breathe down to the abdominals. I have about a 10-minute routine that is a person can adjust or just start and just do it as soon as your feet hit the floor. And I realize if I can just get that much in a person, their health and wellness is going to improve tremendously.
Yeah, this is something, and I speak to people often, I think breathing has come into play for me a little bit more, starting to practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because you get so hyperventilated and incorrect breathing, especially when somebody's trying to kind of get on top of you and they got all this weight on top of you and you kind of have some anxiety about it. You're claustrophobic because you're trying to, and you got to breathe your way out of things. Okay. Are you end up tapping out because you just don't, you can't function right. And so, and that was something, right? Control your breathing. This is what my coach kept on saying in the beginning when I was really going hard in the beginning. It's like, you got to control your breathing. You're not controlling your breathing. And now I have this routine to get more oxygen inside me on a daily before I even start the day. So, and it's not the prettiest looking breathing either, but it's exactly what you say, deep breath and then another deep breath from it and then letting it out. And, at first, when I was first doing it, man, I got so lightheaded. I was like, man, what the heck? And, but after time, I think that I was just oxygen deprived from what I can see. That's why it was that way. I don't get those lightheadedness like I used to. So even being as long as I've been doing this kind of stuff, and I found out here, tell me this ain't right, coach. I remember when I'm lifting heavy weights, I don't breathe. I don't breathe through it. I take a deep breath and I hold it until it's all the way up, and then I take a breath, right? I'm not breathing through the exercise. And I'm like, man, I've been lifting weights wrong the whole freaking time I've been doing it, man. And so it's...
Well, that's not necessarily incorrect. The breathing for weightlifting, powerlifting is a little different, okay? When you're breathing like that, you have to maintain a certain level of body tension. And the breathing that you just described, you learn how to breathe as a power lifter. It's not necessarily the way you breathe as a martial artist when you're on the mat trying to escape through the jiu-jitsu. It's a different level of breathing, okay? And the martial artist has to understand all these types of breathing to be a really good martial artist. And I consider martial arts the one system or athletic ability that offers the whole gamut up to you. If you get the right teacher, you get one teacher that can teach you this, you can want a teacher to teach you this, but all of it is martial arts. And they have all types of breathing patterns associated with it. So the body tension exercises, which is, you see most of that with the Sanchin type breathing patterns, when they're really hard and breathing, blowing the air out tight, the whole body's hot, and they're breaking boards and bricks over the body, right? This type of breathing.
Right.
That is, the martial artists show that at a very high level because they're breaking, you see in the Shaolin Temple or the monks doing these kind of, these amazing skill sets where they're breaking bricks over the body and they're impenetrable to spears and punches and things like that. It's intimidating to most folks, but at a low level of just that one skill, when you create that mind-body connection in the nervous system, you can increase strength in your health tremendously. I have a client that I teach a client if they're old or young and they have balance issues, or let's go to old. If they're older and they have balance issues, which seems to be a big part with the older community, they lose touch with the body's ability to tighten up and be strong and how to breathe. And they go into this relaxed fear mode and the bodies aren't connected and they can fall over. So I teach them simple sets of how to breathe and strengthen the body you can do it either sitting or standing. Pressing against a wall and breathing will help to connect the body and the feet and the arms together. And once you get that strength connection back, you can stand in a better balanced position. I don't know if that should come across. I've talked to a lot of folks, and that's one of the easy ways to get that to start to happen in your body.
I agree with that. And that's one thing. I have a lot of older martial artists that are taking Krav and stuff like this. Balance seems to be an issue quite a bit. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's amazing what you do lose as you get older, or what you feel like, man, that used to be so easy for me to do. And yeah, I think we get complacent sometimes, and so we don't push ourselves to what it needs to be, to maintain balance and strength. Well, let's talk about. So you're doing an anthology, right? You're doing an anthology next. So if people don't know what an anthology is, now you're one of many authors inside of a book, right? That's what an anthology is. So I'm on my let's see. I published a book last year, and then I have an anthology I wrote in spiritual fitness. I'm doing Born to Risk and Dear Younger Me. So I've got 3 anthologies that are out there working right now. And so it's a little bit different, right? Because you can kind of constantly, you can hone in on one thing that you want to talk about now. You don't have to kind of write a whole book on it, which is kind of nice. And then you got some feedback of other authors in their reputable fields so it's like getting, I don't know. I like anthologies, man. It gives you a whole broad range of different people's perspective on things. So it's really good. Now yours, I was reading through yours last night, and it's got the 10 elements of total wellness, the Marshall way of strength, longevity, and life balance. So let's talk about a couple of the ones that you feel that inside there that you want to talk about.
Okay.
What's your number one? What's your number one? Number one you have in yours is fitness. Right. Which says martial arts, mobility, breath, functional, minimalist, strength management. Why don't we look at this fitness one here real quick?
Okay. Let me explain real briefly where the 10 elements came from. Okay. Just to touch on it real quick, because there's a general, if you look up wellness on the internet, you're going to find the 8 dimensions of wellness. And that's generally it's very popular, and it's what's used to describe what wellness is. And I basically talk about those in my first book, The 8 Dimensions of Wellness. But as I started a couple of programs, I realized with martial artists, the element of fitness it needed to be broken up. The exercise the exercise part of the wellness plan needed to be broken up. So I broke it up into fitness and nutrition, and I added those two more, made it 10 elements. Okay, I broke up the exercise portion. It's not just exercise, because martial artists have no issue with exercise. Okay, that's something that's a little different for martial artists. So wellness is different when martial artists think of wellness. They think of fitness and everything. So it's only the one element. So when I said the martial arts, mobility, breath, functional, minimalist, and strength management. Okay, what I mean by that is the martial artists, the ability they concentrate on mobility, which is very important to martial artists. To be a good martial artist, you have to learn how to be very mobile. They spend lots of time flexibility, lots of time in movement training, response training, all kinds of elements of mobility. The breath control, which is what we just talked about, is critical. Knowing how to breathe when you're attacked, versus which you're punching, which you're absorbing an attack, how you, if you are on the mat, wrestling, there's a certain level of breathing. So breath control is critical. And then there's functional. Now, functional is another one of these words. It's like a buzzword, just functional training. What does it really mean? If you have a sport, okay, if you're into a sport and you're lifting weights, like you said, is that a functional exercise that actually works with your sport? Okay. So there are exercises that you can do that actually should enhance your particular sport. And strength training is important to all sports, but it's normally overdone to the point where it's no longer useful in that sport. So after a while, you should be able to do strength training, and you have to do sport-specific training in order to get better at the sport. So functional to a martial artist, their strength training and their movement training should be congruent, which makes a better martial artist. So most martial artists, they'll get into their cross-training phase and they'll start lifting weights, and they'll overdo the weight training and then try to do the martial arts training. And they'll find out they have a rest period between the weight training and martial arts. So that means it's not congruent. That means it's something that's not connecting. You should be able to seamlessly connect the two together. And in the old school of martial arts training, this is what was done in the old styles of thousands of years of martial arts training. The masters knew that they had to make strength training congruent with their specific martial arts training. And you'll find different martial artists would train differently based on the styles that they were practicing. And it was very popular with Kung Fu training. They would, if you practice a Mantis style versus a Wing Chun style versus long fist style, the masters would have those students practice different types of functional strength training because it was congruent with those particular systems. So that's what I mean by functional. So when I talk about this article, I'm talking about the martial artist, but every sport, in order for you to excel at the sport, you have to find the congruent strength training with your martial arts training. And they're getting more experimental with this all the time. And then there's minimalist. So minimalist is another one of these words that you have to find a way of not overdoing the training. It's minimalist is the easiest way to do it without overtraining, which is critical to martial artists. We overdo most of the things, and you have to find a simple way where you can do it all the time. Like I know a teacher once told me you have to practice 2 hours a day in order to do these. So you have to practice. But what does that really mean? I would overdo with the parts I liked, and then the parts I didn't like, I probably didn't do enough of them. You see, so you have to find a minimalist approach to both of those. And then there's a strength management, which I talked about briefly with the functional training. So I'm not go back into that one as much, but you have to manage the strength training with your. When we say functional training, it's like the push-ups, pull-ups, functional training, and then the strength training with the resistance or weight. I break those two up into the functional being the non-weight and the strength being the resistance. That's a good way to break the two apart.
So let's talk to our somebody that's not a martial artist, and they're saying, well, I'd like to talk to Coach about this, and then maybe they don't want to do martial arts classes, right? But they want to have the benefit of the fitness side of it. And somebody's coming to you and saying, I need a little help in this fitness area. They're a little bit older. Their balance isn't as good. And the minimalist thing, I think, is a little bit of something is better than a lot of nothing, right?
Right.
So, when you talk to the older folks and they don't have balance issues, why don't we talk about, some beginner stuff for people that are on the podcast that are listening that aren't elite athletes, or they're not martial artists, or they don't have that kind of stuff, but they're in their 50s. For some reason, we start to look at life a little bit different because time is the ultimate opponent, and that we're trying to beat. That opponent never loses, but we have to always kind of duck and dive it, right? So what that looks like. So let's talk to a beginner, doesn't know where to start. What's one thing they can do to have better balance is using a chair for exercises for functional fitness, like maybe doing push-ups off a wall, or maybe then you graduate to you're using the chair as a push-up, maybe sitting and standing back up and sitting back down using the chair. Let's talk about not the elite athlete, the ones that we can help that you and I see that are 60 years old that look and probably feel like they're 75 to 80. So let's talk about that a little bit, Coach. How do we take those beginners and help them get started?
Yeah, that's the clientele that I mostly see today, and I mostly gravitate toward that clientele. Depending on the person has severe balance issues, which is the one I'm about to accept now. I have a new client now that's coming to me. They're in their 70s and they have really bad balance issues. Plus, they have a weight concern. So that type of person is not going to join a gym because they have all kinds of other issues that prevent them from doing that. They have to be taught in a lot of things, and the environment is not conducive to what they're trying to achieve for themselves. And they're really trying to figure out, what is it I need? So I will go into a client like that. I'll just give you how I'll address that. A person in that position, I basically say is a project, but I want to see where their mind and body, how it works together. Have they lost functionality with pressing into the floor, mind-body connection with the breath, which is basically the three elements. So I'll have them sit in a chair, okay? Sit in a stiff chair, not a flexible, not a soft chair, basically a folding hard chair where the legs can kind of be almost parallel to the floor. And put their hands on their legs, on their knees, and press their hands into the legs, okay? Have them open their chest, press their hands into the legs and press their feet into the floor and see if they can get the muscles to fire. And if you can see the muscles start to waking up in the body, I'll add them to take a breath through the nose and exhale and press into the body parts I just described. So as they exhale, they're pressing into the body and it's causing the body to get tight. And I want the body to get tight. That way the muscles will start to respond. If you've ever had a surgery and you lost functionality of a joint, they have you press against the wall or do simple exercises to try to get muscle respond to the muscle in a strength element. So you're pressing against the object. It's a rehab, right? You're rehabbing the muscle. So what I do is I use that same principle for the rehabbing the entire body. Okay, that's the philosophy that I handle. So it's a rehab approach, but it's also a martial artist way of understanding how to generate strength by tightening the body. See, martial artists know this skill. So every time I've had a surgery, I can do these rehabs and heal my body fast because as a martial artist who understands these things, you notice the body works as a unit. You want to think of the body as an entire unit, not just an arm, a leg, a foot. So as you go into rehab, they concentrate on the injured part. But even if they come to me with an injured part, I still have them concentrate on the entire body. So once they can get that connection, and I can actually get them to press off the floor and stand up. And if I work to that level, unassisted by just pushing into the floor and then pushing the hips forward, I get them to stand up, they've achieved a major success that they did not have coming into the studio. And that alone improves their balance and functionality. They can now walk around their house, which is something that they were having difficulty doing before we met. And this is the type of training that I take with pretty much every client, because I find that the client starts to lose connectivity with their nervous systems in this way, younger and younger, because of the occupational work that we do in the West. We sit more, we don't do functional training, when we do weightlifting, we do more segmented type work the chest, you work the legs. So we push ourselves away from the natural functionality of the body by doing these things in the gym, if that makes sense. So when they come to me, I always start at that level to see how the body is smart. I basically call that a smart body, when it can do that kind of connectivity between the muscles. And that's the way I'm saying I'm seeing it younger, because the younger clients I have, I'm able to turn them before it's totally gone, if that makes sense. Okay.
Right. I understand that. Yeah.
Okay. You know what I'm saying? So the longer they've disconnected, sometimes it takes a little longer to come back, but it still comes back. Okay. So this is one way. That's a simple way to get it going.
So let's talk about the mindset. Let's talk about somebody's mindset. You know, this is my biggest issues on. Sometimes people say, well, I really don't want to try martial arts training until I'm in shape. And, you hear this kind of stuff constantly. Or, my opinion is people don't start a lot of things because of embarrassment, not because they're out of shape. I think they're just kind of embarrassed to put themselves out there. And I understand the gym atmosphere. I see it all the time, right? I mean, and today's gym atmosphere is worse than what it was 10, 15 years ago. I mean, so these guys filming themselves everywhere and, hogging machines, being on their freaking phones. I mean, it drives me absolutely crazy. I can only take those type of gyms just for a little bit. I like to go find those old school gyms where all the old school bodybuilders are. You hear the iron clanging. It's not those plastic weights. I can hear the iron. I can hear the men pushing through things. I can hear the encouragement. And that the gym atmosphere just isn't that at all, today. So let's talk about the mindset of somebody getting into their wellness a little bit, because we can teach them all this stuff, but if certain things don't change, if diet doesn't change, if your mindset doesn't change that you want to be well, your body's going to die. That's just the way it goes. You've got to train your mind to say that hey, I want the second half of my life to even be more fulfilling than the first. It's not how long we live, it's the quality of how we live long. It's not, what's the use of being 90 years old, but you've been in bed for 2 years? I mean, what really is the use of that kind of life? Right. So let's talk about the mindset that you have. Let's dab into what your thought process is on mindset. And is that one of your elements at all? Let me take a look at that. It could kind of like under psychological, I guess that would be something there.
That's right.
Okay.
Let me just run through I'm just going to mention what the 10 elements are real quick. So it's on the podcast.
Okay. Let's do that.
Fitness, number 2 is nutrition. Number 3 is accountability. Number 4 is psychological. Number 5 is business. Number 6 is society. Number 7 is spiritual. Number 8 is intelligence. Number 9 is ecological. And number 10 is economical. Okay. And these elements they all have a reason for being there, for being total well. Okay. It's not just fitness, because fitness is one of the first things that leave when something else happens in your life. Okay. If you have a life event, you no longer can get to the gym. That's the first thing to go, the gyms. And you have a job situation that you move, your fitness goes away too, because every time you have a major event change, fitness kind of disappears and gets left behind. You have to get fit again. You gain weight, nutrition, everything starts to slip away. So that's why the other 10 elements are part of it. But when you talk about mental mind frame, what is it? What are we trying to achieve? Well, most of the clients that come to me, their mental mind is they have an idea of what they think they want to, an idea of what fitness is to them, or the body type that they would think they want to achieve based on something they've seen or some place they've been in the past in their fitness. So their knowledge that's the length of their knowledge. So they're coming to find out where I can go. I want to get here. In general, or rule of thumb is they all want to feel better about themselves. And they don't really know how to get to that point. So I know how I take the approach of helping them to feel better in their bodies by doing simple exercises, like I mentioned earlier, to get that connectivity to the mind and the body. And that sets the mental frame. The expectations now, they get a little clearer because they feel good when they leave the training sessions. And the whole object is to help someone feel good with a little bit of work. The classes are 30 minutes. All of my classes are 30 minutes long. They may go to 40, but in general, they're signed up for 30 minutes at a time. Anything more is a little harder to maintain. So I teach them that in a wellness program, if you're going to build strength, you don't need a lot of time to do it. And you want to spend as less time, but as much productive time as possible to set the right tone for, do I have time to exercise? Okay, they say time is always a big problem getting. If you're going to a gym, that's obviously take 2 hours. You drive there, you go there, you work out, you come back. It's 2 hours. And you're exhausted, and it's just that time is a big issue. So I can get them to train 30 minutes a day in their home or less, and get improvements in their health and feel well within their bodies. That will improve their overall wellness and health. And all of my clients get that level of training. So that's the mental frame. Less is actually more when you're trying to be well, as long as it's right.
Yeah, listen. I find that as an older person in the gym, I was one of those 2.5 hour nuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I find that sometimes less is more. And some of these top bodybuilders now talk about the same thing. It's not like being in the gym 3 hours in the morning, then 3 hours at night. It's not. They speak well of this, and then as you know. That's the problem. I told you before, Coach, that's the problem with even myself. I had to kind of change my mindset because, I lifted and I only put 275 on the bar, right? And I'm like, I know, I can still do this and not a problem. I didn't have a spotter. I was in the garage. I was pushing 225, and I'm like, well, let's just do 275 for a set of 3. And, man, I brought that down, and I'm like, what the heck? And I'm going up, and I'm like, I'm stuck, right? And I either got to dump the weight And so I didn't dump it. I scooted myself back to get my shoulders more in line. And so I can use my shoulders, lifted it. Then I popped something in my shoulder. That took me 7 months of super lightweight after that. I could not press a bar. I couldn't do dumbbells. And so for 7 months, because I was being stupid, that injury took forever to heal. And so I believe one thing I think you are true. I think most people don't do any exercise at all because they say I just don't have time to do that. I don't think people don't have time. They don't make time. I think there's a difference, right? You have time management. Everybody has the same 24 hours in a day, and you have to manage that time. Whatever. So if you want to put 30 minutes here, you can. But if you don't want to, then you won't, because it's just not as important to you. You'll manage time for what's most important to you. And this is the kind of the mindset that I tell my students anyway. I said, practice doesn't have to be 3-4 hours a day. I mean, that's the biggest myth. If you can put it in your 2 to 3 classes a week and spend 15 minutes at home on some stuff, so your mind can retain what we're doing, you're going to excel and you're not going to get burned out. And I think burnout's one of the main things that people quit, because it's hard. It takes self-discipline to be disciplined. You know, when the voice is telling you you're too tired and you don't want to do it. My voice was just telling me that last night too. Before I went to bed, I was like, man, I didn't do the workout like I usually did in the morning. Okay, I'll just catch a double tomorrow. And I didn't. I was laying in bed just feeling it. So I just got up and went and did it. You know what I mean? I was like, man, I'm going to sit here and not sleep now because I didn't do what I was supposed to do. So I went out and did a quick workout. It wasn't very long. It was 20 minutes. And after I was done, I'm like, I wasted 2.5 hours talking myself out of doing something for 20 minutes. You know what I mean? I was like, that's stupid. And so I agree with you that less is more. I think that will help people at least start a regiment. As an older person now, because, you know, I watch what goes on. If I go out in a public place and I see people, well, I'm in a group, right? I'm in a Toastmasters group right now, trying to get better at speaking and stuff. And my group is an older group. And I thought for sure I'm the baby in the group based on how everybody looks, right? And I'm like, and I'm not the baby in the group. I was like, wait, what? And I was like, I asked my group, I said, hey man, you guys exercising? Are you eating properly? Are you eating something that is feeding you nutritionally? And of course you find out, a lot of Diet Coke and a lot of Western food that is not your friend. So, how do you help somebody with their mindset of staying on track? Do you have because accountability is one of them. I saw it in there. Mm-hmm. So do you have them accountable to you? And how do you ultimately get them accountable to themselves? So it's okay to be accountable to me. I'm the coach. Mm-hmm. And you're paying me to do something. And I'm going to hold you accountable because I'm going to call you. I'm going to be on you. But even so, even after that, without any kind of self-discipline, motivation goes away. Everybody's super motivated in the morning to change their life around, or in January, they're going to change their whole life around. And then life gets in the way and the motivation goes away. But you've never been taught self-discipline. Mm-hmm. How do you bite-size self-discipline to somebody to help them, stay on track? Don't quit right before you win, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I find that, I've experienced with this quite a bit because I've been training folks. Like I said, I'm a trainer, and I've found out that people train differently when it comes to training, and they basically all phase off. Everyone phases off. And I used to say, well, they would get good results, but the goal of a trainer or a good wellness coach or anything that you want to do with a client is you want them to eventually wean off of your program. And that's the goal is. So I tell all of them that as a coach, I will get you to a point, but the object is for you to wean off and become knowledgeable enough to maintain a wellness program for yourself. Understand that, everyone's life is different and situations in your life aren't exactly as mine, but you can find time to manage your wellness through that. So 8 weeks is pretty much the time I asked them to be accountable to me in the beginning. And that is an account. I use an app for that. We use for in-person folks. We meet on a regular basis. I train folks about 2 days a week in person, but we're online. We set up a program where we can just be accountable. I have them, if they're trying to lose weight, I have them send me pictures of their food and to get them on track on different types of how they eat during the day. I find out what is their worst meal of the day to eat. We break it all down to what is going on in their life to be accountable to the weak parts that they're failing on, because most folks are successful at a lot of parts in their daily routine. It's just the one deal that they may mess up with, they may mess up the lunch meal, they eat too late at night, they're doing everything else right, but those two things are like sabotaging their success. So once we find out what the weak link is, we work on that and they start to achieve better results. Most of the time is when they learn the exercise piece that I teach, as far as we talked about earlier, how to create the time and attention, which is basically what I described with pressing into the legs and how long you can hold that and to generate the breath with that. Once you understand that level of dynamic with exercise becomes a lot less, because I don't want them to spend a lot of time on exercise. Just those simple drills and exercises like I just described is all you need within the 8-week program to get a lot of good success with your overall wellness. Once they achieve that level of connectivity or time or that level of exercise and that level of strength, they find themselves moving better or feeling better in their bodies. And I find that can happen in about 8 weeks. And depending on the person's level of conditioning, if they've been training in the gym for a very long time and they have a lot of bad habits, that may be a little sometimes hard to get that connectivity. But if they haven't been training for a year, I can get them to see results relatively within a number of just a few days. And even within one session, I can see the body changing.
That's awesome. And I think it's powerful for a coach to say, I think that's powerful to hear that, to wean off. My job is to get you started, is to prepare you, to train you so that you can do this on your own and then eventually show somebody else what it is and then continue the cycle.
Right.
And so I think that's powerful. That's what, eventually that's what you want to do. You don't want them just hanging on for dear life when you're in a one-on-one training situation, right? Because then they become a crutch. They don't become a coach.
That's right. You're not really helping them at that point. It's just a profitable thing at that point. And my goal is not to just, they want to, the wellness program is not about all profitability. It's helping them move forward. That's correct.
Right. I think that, just like Zig Ziglar says, you help enough people get what you want, you'll get what you want. And through your trainings and saying, hey, this is what people do, I'm sure this is how you're going to get clients, is, hey, my coach, man, took me through an 8 weeks program. You know what he does in 8 weeks? He focuses in on how I can do this without having him there. And that's the most powerful thing, right? And then you get clients from other clients saying, hey, my friend's done this. They said that you can help me. It's an 8-week course to kind of set me up for a win. And I think that's important. I think that in a fitness regimen like what you're doing, you're getting people on a wellness journey. That's a little bit different than on a black belt journey. You're getting them on a wellness journey. Sometimes the wellness journey is more important. Then as their wellness journey progresses, then they can go start looking at other physical things that might make interest to them. Maybe I can try. Maybe I can dabble into this, because now their confidence is built. Now their body is built a little bit, and now they can go and do things that, they couldn't do before. So right. I think that's powerful, Coach. I think that's listening to a coach say, my coach was like that. Just so I had a trainer too. I have had a couple of the top bodybuilders that trained me, even in the gym. And you know what I used him for more? Ronnie is his name, Ronnie Camacho. Man, I just love him. But when I would work out with Ronnie, he's super good at mental stuff, talking you through. As a man, a lot of times, you don't have another guy to kind of, beat things off, go banter back and forth with. So I would say to Ronnie, hey, this is my struggles. And he would just give me this, the coaching that I needed to, and then when you left the session, it wasn't about the lifting, it was about the talking and how to get yourself there. The lifting is kind of like like martial arts, right? We use martial arts as a tool to build your self-confidence. He uses the weights to do the same thing for me, so he can talk me through some mental blockage. And I think that's what I enjoyed with my coach. I still enjoy it today. When I'm kind of struggling a little bit, it's weird. He knows, like he can tell him, he knows me pretty well. And so he'll just give me a quick call and say, Mark, are we good here? Or because I kind of hear in your voice, and then that's what I did. That's what Ronnie and I's relationship was. So it was awesome. But on the same token, yours, do you feel your clients so if somebody's here watching today and say, man, I'd like to kind of work with this gentleman. You have an online and you have an in-person, correct? Where are you out of, first of all? Where does your in-person training happen?
Yeah, in person, I'm in Bowie, Maryland. So I have folks that want me to come out and do some workshops across different states and up in the East, New York and things, Philadelphia. But basically, I do work out of my studio here in Bowie. I have 2 locations. And that's where we go. So in person, we meet there in 30 minutes or so just to get them started. We do an intake, assess where they are, decide what they want to achieve, what their goal is, or what at least start to establish a goal, and then work from there. Most clients are coming to you for a reason. Like you go to a doctor, you have a problem, and I know it hurts, but I don't know how to fix it. So the coach's approach is to help them discover what's hurting. Is that really what it is? And then move forward with that. And essentially, I find there's basically 3 things that need to happen to a person if they're trying to make a transformation. Now, obviously, I mentioned the 10 elements of wellness, which are part of the wellness program. But in order to get in shape or to feel the body get strong again, you have to learn to do this time and attention, which I mentioned, to get the body, I call it, to get the body smart again, like a kid running around. Kids run around, they're tight, they're energized all the time because the muscles are always firing. So to get connection with the body as a youthful person again. And that's the first thing. Those are the simple exercises, very simple exercises to get there. And they have no injuries. So folks normally go to the gym, the first thing that happens, they get an injury, and they're afraid they don't want to have an injury. So That's the other part, right? So the time and attention is safe. The other thing is you have to develop some type of HIIT program, high intensity interval training program. And in general, everyone knows they have to do something to generate some level of high tension, especially if they're trying to lose weight. So what do you do for that when a person's not really feeling the workout? They look at a video and they're jumping around, they're skipping rope, they're doing polymetrics, they're jumping off ladders and stuff. And, folks aren't going to do that, right? You go to a high intensity aerobic class and they're kicking the legs up in the air and running and hopping. Folks aren't going to do that. So how do you stimulate that level of training in a person without doing that? And I found there's some very unique things you can do with the kettlebell. Also with this time and attention, there's some very unique things you can do with that way. And once you get them in touch with the breath, you can generate some high intention. You can get the cardio body to generate some high intention. You get the heart rate to go up and down that way as well. And if a person's been sedentary for a while and they've lost connectivity with their body, or they can't do a time and attention for 15 to 30 seconds, they have no business in a high intensity training program because they're going to just hurt themselves and they're going to get an injury. And that's what most people are. So, and if they're trying to lose weight, then we get into some type of carb cycling program, how to not just eliminate carbs in your body, because you can't just tell a person not to eat carbs anymore. It may work for a week, maybe 2 if they're really disciplined, but it's going to start to slip again. So you got to find a way to allow them to eat carbs and understand how to eat carbs. And everyone's a little different. Everyone based on how they eat, we get into that kind of program as well. But those 3 things, time and attention, learning how to do a high intensity training interval program, and to learn the carb cycling, will make a major change in the fitness portion of the 10 elements of the wellness. And that's why those 3 are kind of broken out separately. I realize those are really critical to get your wellness program in tune.
So, Coach, are you going to have when you put this out in your book, you say it's going to be out in March or something, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Will there be right? Is there going to be an element to something online that matches it? Maybe videos on each one of them, or something to that effect, or it comes out and will it be explained enough through the book, each element? Or how will people be able to dabble into it more than just a chapter in an anthology?
Well, that's a good one, because I touch on the 10 elements and I give a description in the book. And I highly encourage you to get the book, to get the description. And I also have the contact information in the book. So each person's wellness plan is going to be a little different if you're going to really address this properly. You can generally I give them the 10 dimensions, and they're like, well, how does that work for me? What are they? Say for instance, we talked about fitness and nutrition. Okay, I'm good with that. Well, what about environmental, or what about society? What does that mean? How does that work into a wellness program, right? What people you associate with, the relationships are very critical here. People are married, they're not married. All these things decide or impact your overall plan. So I look at a person's life and we get into that, and you can establish a decent plan for them to feel good within their bodies and within their spirit, which is very important with the wellness plan. So the elements will be described in the book, and to get into more information about how to maybe adjust that or how to make that work in your life, my contact information will be there as well.
Okay, so I put in your contact information for those that want to hear you in the comments right now. I put your Bowie Club, I put your websites in here now, your email, how to get a hold of you, your phone number, your Facebook, all the stuff to get a hold of Coach is in here now, that you guys can reach out to him and make connections with him. Before we get going, I was looking through the anthology a little bit, and we were talking about different things. You have something called the Bowie Kettlebell Club, and I want to hit on that. What your specialty is there is working with the kettlebells. So let's talk about how that kettlebell can do so much for you in a functional way. Let's talk about that's what you're known for the best, right? Is the Bowie Kettlebell Club. Let's talk about that.
Right. Yeah, good. All of this training comes from my martial arts background. So when I look at everything I've developed, it's basically from the martial arts, because I'm a master in the martial arts. So that is where it comes from. Except everybody doesn't want to learn martial arts. So how do you train them to be well if you're not teaching them martial arts? I found that to be a hard reach if you open up a martial arts school. So people just come in from martial arts. So the benefits of a martial arts program, fitness program, are the top, that are some of the best in the world, the skill sets that are inside the martial arts. So I found that incorporating the skill sets of the health-related portion of the martial arts, I can create a fitness program for somebody who doesn't want to learn martial arts. And for resistance training, to develop the strength that I'm looking to help them achieve, like the time with attention, the kettlebell works very well for that, because the offset balance of the weight, which is a big part of it. And the fact that you can hold the handle and have the fingers open, okay? And still, when you open the fingers and the kettlebell sits properly on the hand, it causes the body to be more engaged than if you were just using a dumbbell. And those little elements by themselves help strengthen the posterior chain of the body, help build the posture, help incorporate the breathing, just by the positioning of the kettlebell. It's not how fast you have to work it. You don't have to work it like a CrossFit workout. When they get to an intermediate advanced portion, they start to swing the kettlebell. But in general, what has to happen is people have to learn how to move their bodies in a correct manner. I find a hip action, or
right,
the hips are number one, or if there's any one area that you can describe that starts to dissipate over fitness, is the hips. People forget how to move the hips. They usually move the knees first. The knees take the blunt of the pain. It may take 4 weeks or less to get that movement pattern correct in the hips. And once you get that, everything starts to move a lot smoother. The kettlebell moves smoother. You generate more power, and you just get overall, your strength just improves tremendously just by the correct movement of the hips and how the feet balance on the floor. So the kettlebell is used. I use it in that way. In the transformation program where folks were losing weight, the kettlebell was key essential to it because you can develop a high intensity program with the kettlebell and body weight exercises and not get injured in the class. So no one's ever been injured using the classes that I teach with the kettlebells, which I like to say I'm very proud of that. And that was one of my goals, not to have anyone get injured, no matter how they come to me. So I run a couple of videos online where I've shown how people use the high intensity training. Like you grab the kettlebell at the horns and just do low, slow squats and come up and push. It's all about the movement of the hips, and then take it up to the body this way and then bring it down. One element of this whole type of training is to keep the resistance in both the positive and negative movement of the exercise. In general, in the Western exercises, you kind of relax on the way down and you use tension on the way up, right? So the object here is to use tension in both directions. And that way you keep the body under tension for a longer period of time. It also forces you to breathe a little better. So little simple things like that improve. And you also burn a ton more calories when you're doing it that way. Okay. So that's one of I use the kettlebell in that way. Very minimalist. I call that's a minimalist way of using strength training to get major results.
Right. So I want to hit on this for those that are watching. Getting a kettlebell isn't super expensive, and a couple ranges for you that you can use. That the amount of exercises you can do in 20 minutes with a kettlebell, just doing kettlebell swings, and stuff like that is just, I can't tell you how, one arm kettlebell swings to the other arm, to both arms, to holding it and squatting. It is a quick 20-minute workout that you can do at any time. And because I use that kettlebell quite often. A lot of good martial artists use kettlebells. My son loves kettlebell work, and he's deceptively strong. He's 155 pounds, but man, he'll yank up a 95 kettlebell right up and over his head with one arm swings, right? For a little dude. And people are like, wow, that's strong. But I said, if you watch him though, he's not just lifting his arm up and doing this. I remember him doing it one day. I said, you just lift up 85 pounds with one hand? And he goes, yeah. And so I said, okay, move over. I'm doing that. I'm not letting you outdo me. And so I grabbed that thing and I humped it up here, and it was all sheer strength, right? Just like, ugh. And he's like, you don't even use any of your legs, Dad. That's why you're having such a hard time, right? And he schools me on how he squats down, hits here, and then he pushes up with his legs, and it was a big nothing. And I'm like, man, see, that's what I'm talking about, that old school, new school. He works on functional fitness, and he's just as strong as I am, even though he doesn't have the bulk I have. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing. So yes, I do encourage any kind of kettlebell, and I know you do online kettlebell. I know you do those classes, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I encourage people, if you've never done the kettlebell workout, reach out to Coach, see if you can get on his online class. Go learn how to swing it, because it can be, you want to talk about working on core, and you're right. That is almost high intensity training, because when you're squatting and lifting a weight all at the same time, it's not the running in place, jump roping, jumping up on a box and jumping. Nobody at 50, 60 likes to jump up on boxes and jump down. Okay. Yeah. Because first of all, their knees probably don't work. And, even just, and you can achieve the same exact thing by stepping up on something, holding onto a bar that's next to you for balance. You step up and you step down, and then you eventually let the bar go, step up, step down. and pretty soon you'll see results. So I think what you do, Coach, is break it down to more biteable stuff so that people can not be so intimidated by this huge regimen of lifting and all this kind of stuff. So I think that those that are listening, and we've had a pretty good number of that's been on and off as we talking, to reach out to you. If you've never done a kettlebell, go do a kettlebell workshop with him. Is that something you have on a constant basis? Is that a weekly thing? How does that work for somebody that wants to come and meet you and do a kettlebell sessions with you?
Yeah, I run 8-week sessions. I think 8 weeks work really well for my online programs. It's not too much. It's not too little. 8-week sessions. In person are based on a monthly. I do a monthly session each per month with people, depending on, and give them the opportunity to continue with that. I have people been with me since 2012, since staying with me consistently. They can work out on their own. They just love the camaraderie. We build a family of people. That's the big martial arts piece. That's part of my 4 dimensions that I offer in the book, which is I encourage you to get the book, The Art of Being Well, and it kind of explains the 4 elements that I teach as far as the curriculum. And the one thing that's hidden within the curriculum, which is my martial arts program, is that when people start a martial arts class, and you know this, Mark, they're intimidated to start a martial arts class because they're not fit and they're afraid they're going to get hurt. So the program I teach on the kettlebells and the mobility actually prepares them for self-defense. They get the understanding of the time and attention. You know how you have to connect it when you block in a punch. It's not just blocking with your arm. You have to use the whole body, right? So once they understand time and attention, and they can connect the legs and the arms together and the body's stronger, it's like wax on, wax off, okay? You actually, now I can teach them a self-defense technique without telling them, well, you have to use your legs, okay? Because now the legs are being used because they've had that mind-body connection through the kettlebell training and the other exercises that we teach. In fact, there's a client now that I'm teaching. She wants to start doing the martial arts self-defense portions of it. And it's really simple now that she can do the power moves of the body of a flip. She can flip me over because she's learned this level of understanding of the body. She couldn't do a downward dog position when she started. Okay, so now it's improved because the muscles are now integrated, and I call them smart muscles. So so the program I'm teaching, I'll have another one starting on the 19th. And another 8-week session starting on the 19th. So if folks want to get involved with that, send me a shout out and see if we can go from there.
So we got a question. This is a good friend of mine, David Starachi. You know, he's in our age category. He is a phenomenal martial artist, and he has been ever since I've known him from way back in the 80s when we started training. His question for the coach. I've been training HIIT for about 1.5 years. Recently, our HIIT coaches have been adding kettle more and more. Many times at the end of the session, while I'm starting to fatigue, I add weight. Is this an advantage, or should I stay with the weight I started with? I'm old school like Mr. Cox. Sometimes I push into the danger zone. Please advise.
That's a common one. It's saying that when I'm starting to fatigue, I add weight. Okay, this is common with the old school folks. Okay, we keep pushing. I know I was a big victim, a big culprit of that myself. You're not getting better unless you're pushing through the tire parts, right?
That's correct. Excellent. 100%. You can have water, water makes you weak, that type of thing. Yes.
That's right. That's only good if you're training for a competition of fighting. You have to be able to accept the level of, and it's only for a short time. You don't want to train forever that way. But when you're in competition, you have to push to a certain point where it's beyond just normal training. Okay. So you have to balance, you have to fight that fatigue and understand what it really is. So that's a little different. But when you come to the question that the gentleman asked, if you're starting to get tired, it's time to stop. Okay. I always tell folks, if you start to feel pain anywhere in the exercises, you say you're doing 10 swings and you start to feel pain on number 9, the gig is up, okay? The body, there's no need to push for the extra 3. Because you rest, like everything come back, and then do 5 to 8 more. So you want to be strong every time you do a set of exercises. If you can't do the set without any pain, then that day is over for your workout. You should rest out and then come back the next day. Otherwise, you're going to have a chronic issue start to occur. You're going to start to get repetitive stress syndromes. You may have a form break that needs to be fixed, and you're working into the form break, and it's causing you to have pain. So you're going to create a bad habit. So the best habits are formed when the body is at rest and you're doing the exercises properly. As soon as you start to fatigue, you start looking for other ways to push through that extra level, and the form is broken. So you don't want to push through the exercise when you're fatigued. You stop the gig, rest up, and maybe do another set. And that's the best way to keep yourself from getting injured and prevent yourself from overtraining.
I think that's good. And while you're listening, Dave, I get where he's at, because he he's an animal on top of it. For his, he'll push. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell him that, just like I told you, there are sometimes I feel, even on the jiu-jitsu mat, I say, okay, this is going to be, we're going to go 9 rounds of 5-minute 9 rounds. We're going to do nonstop, and you're going to do nonstop. Don't get off the mat. It doesn't matter, whatever. Now, that doesn't mean that I push so hard that on round 8, I'm just going balls to the wall. No, that means, okay, maybe I'm flow rolling now. Maybe I'm going to finish out what I started. And I pushed the maximum I can push, but I want to still get past that zone. And I think, Dave, when I'm listening, I'm reading through what you're saying. I add weight for the advantage. I think the coach is right. When you're kind of training for something, and you've got to have that, you've got to have that fatigue and work through it. And I think type A personalities anyway need to have it, almost like they feel, even though we don't compete as much, we're still competitive to ourselves. That's just how I am. I know that I'm always improving myself. Can I push myself past? But I do know I've learned very, very quickly as I've gotten older that if I push too much, then all of a sudden I don't get to train for 2 weeks. And now that sucks. So that I was just telling Coach right before we hit this, I hurt myself doing a bench press, and I was out, man. I couldn't I was lifting baby weights, man, for 6 weeks, little wussy weights. Right. And I was like, man, I was so pissed at myself for doing that just because my ego got engaged. But there are times I think that we need to do, he still trains in his martial arts today, that if you're trying to do something you want to get, or you're going to do a forms competition, or what you're going to do, one of these coming up, and you want to compete real quick, and you want to go to fatigue, how much fast can I get past it? I don't think there's anything wrong with, like the coach said, if you do it, but I don't think in the long run, increasing is something that's going to be longevity for us, So hopefully he helped answer that a little bit, Dave, on there. You'd like him a lot, man. He was, we called Dave Starachi when I was in the 80s. You know how Billy Blanks came out and did cardio karate, yes, and it was the biggest thing forever. Yes. He was doing that way before Billy Blanks was. He would come in, he was just a wiry, strong, loved to fight, and he'd do this cardio karate, man. And he'd be so unique that he'd come in and put music on, because that just wasn't a thing. And then he'd bouncing around. We'd be in class with him, and we'd bounce around like boom, boom, boom. And so it was so fun to train with him. You know what I mean? It's fun to watch him now, even as he's gotten older like we have, and still just getting after it, man. He's a good dude, man. You'd like him. I really like Dave.
Awesome.
So that's good.
I like that.
All right.
I think I know I'm probably jumping in on this one, Mark, but if I consider the program I teach as like a maintenance program, it's a level you just kind of stay in the maintenance cycle where you can continue to be here. You can do this for the rest of your life. But whenever you want to jump it up, you can do it, and then you come back down to the maintenance cycle, right? But where that maintenance cycle is. And I help people discover. I know I had a big issue with that. I was always wanted to be up here, at high level.
That's just how we build. That's how we're built.
But nowadays, I can stay at the maintenance level, and if I want to ride a bike, I can go out and do 25 miles. It's not a big deal, right? And I can come back down. You can go out and do 5 miles, or you can walk 2 miles, you can walk 10 miles. But you have to know what a maintenance cycle is, and you can go up and down as much as you like. It's something you can do your entire life.
Yeah, excellent. Good advice, Coach, man. And we'll end on that note. I'm already taking you over the hour like we did, but this has been super informative as usual. You and I can sit and talk martial arts and fitness for a long time. And I don't know, are you being at any event? I'll be in, are you going to the Global Summit in May in Maryland? Are you going to that?
Yeah, I will be there. The Global Summit in May.
I'll be there. We'll get to sit and talk to each other there. I'll be there. I'm going there, and then I'm going to go to Manassas afterwards. I got some seminars I'm going to teach, so I'll be out there a little bit longer. And so we'll get to meet up in there for sure, where we can sit and talk again face to face. I look forward to it.
Absolutely,
all right,
man.
Had a great time again today, Coach. I got all your contact information out there for everybody. I'll put the audio out for you so you can share it with your people. Okay. And my algorithm now in YouTube has gotten way, way bigger. So, you'll get 500,000, 1,000 views today on this video alone. I've hired somebody to help me boost my YouTube channel. So we'll get you exposed out there the best we can. I'll have some clips from this I have an AI that does some clips from our stuff, and I'll send it to you so you can share it and put it out there on your platform. Sound good?
No, that sounds great, man.
All right, man. Enjoyed my hour with you, Coach. Have an awesome day, sir.
You've been listening to Real Talk with Mark Cox. Real life, real topics, real conversation. We're passionate about motivation, fitness, self-defense, weight loss, and coming at it from a real angle. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we hope you had fun. We know we did. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on Instagram and Facebook at MarkCox100. Make sure to subscribe and review. And tell a friend or two about the show. For more, hit up the website at markcox.com. Till next time, keep it real.